No, I didn't. I got home.
The EPOC meeting will begin shortly for any of those who are tuning in via YouTube. We are waiting for one more member. Thank you.
We'll call the meeting to order. Before we start, is there anyone on Zoom or on phone call? No, okay. Just want to take the roll call.
Andrea Wheeler,
Here,
David Burkhardt,
Here.
Jeff Nico.
Here.
Ralph Matore, not present. Linda Marquez.
Here.
oh yeah.
Which the
Push
is.
the harder, okay.
All right, this is the public comment portion of the meeting. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons desiring to address the committee on any matter not on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Is there any member of the public that wishes to speak?
There is none.
Now we will approve the minutes from March 14th. They are in the packet.
I move to approve. Second.
Any discussion? I would like to take the roll.
Andrea Wheeler,
Yes?
David Burkhardt,
Yes.
Jeff Nico,
Yes.
Linda Marquez.
Yes.
The chairperson's report, we'd like to introduce our new member who's with us tonight, Linda Marquez, and I'm going to turn this over to Dave Burkhardt to introduce our newest member.
Welcome, Linda. I was on at least one Zoom call with Linda, and she appears to be a pretty dedicated open space fan, and so we want to welcome her. Do we call you doctor?
No.
Linda has a doctorate degree. Also, she has corporate experience and leadership experience in corporations. So she knows a little bit about dealing with numbers and budgets and presumably how to keep them in line. Maybe Linda, you want to just say a few words of why you're here, why you decided to become a committee member.
Okay, thank you. I was referred to open space from the League of Women Voters, the Climate Change Committee, in which I joined. I retired at the end of March of last year from a semiconductor equipment company, Lam Research, Fremont. I worked 25 plus years in the semiconductor industry, and I got my doctorate from UC Berkeley, 1993 in chemistry, and then proceeded to work pretty much in the semiconductor industry after that till I retired. So I love to hike. I love the outdoors. I joined the League of Women Voters. I got directed to the Climate Change Committee, and then they directed me, said, you should go work and volunteer for open space. That's how I got led over here.
I think you'll find that our committee has pretty good chemistry.
Good. I like that. I like that.
Been waiting a long time.
He wanted for that, yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Linda. You're welcome. We're very, very glad to have you.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. And our cozy little committee that looks at numbers. For some reason that scares people off. I don't know why.
No hiking involved.
Well, that's not true. In the fall, we usually get to go visit one of the projects or a couple of the projects out in the field. So it's, what are the perks? And another perk is that we're going to get early access to Walkma. Mine Walkma,
Oh,
correct? Keep asking for that.
Will you get a key to the lock?
All right, moving on to new business. So the first, Caroline, can you just remind me, where do we do public comment for each of the items of new business, before or after?
Typically it's after, so we'll introduce the item, we'll present, and then at that point you can either have the committee discussion or you can do the public comments.
I think what I'd like to do for this one is have you present it and take the public comment, because then we're going to get into, editing it in detail.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm being very precise for something that's not. Okay, yes. Okay, so our first order of business is to review, finalize, and approve the expenditure plan oversight committee fiscal year 2021-2022 annual oversight report. And for our new, we should have done this before, for our new committee member, maybe you can introduce yourself. And we can go back to Leah and.
Yes,
To,
good evening. My name is Justina Teen, Fiscal Services Officer.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Good evening. My name is Justina Teen. I'm the Fiscal Services Officer. Just to kind of give an overview of, yeah. Yes, just to give an overview of the process. So this report was actually drafted by the committee. And today the goal is to finalize it. And so, you know, just like previous years, we've lined the numbers just to kind of easy navigation. But basically, we'll kind of go through the report and see if other members have any feedback on the draft. And see if we can aim to finalize it tonight. So with that, I'll make it a little bit bigger, full screen.
And then it's my settings, so.
You mean like dark mode?
Switch modes.
No. Let me move this out of the way. Nope, too big. Is that decent?
this one is. We can really see it on this.
Okay. So Chair, would you like to lead through each line? And I'll just kind of input.
Okay, so why don't I first start by seeing if there's any public comment on this item? There are none. I think, did you all have a chance to read it ahead of the meeting? Okay, so I think we should probably do it kind of section by section. So can you scroll up a little bit more? You can kind of, because this first section is sort of the introductory portion of it. And we kind of, so basically, yeah, let's kind of do it sort of section by section. And so is there anyone who has any questions about anything in this section? Please take your time to read it if you need to. That tonight's meeting is to do this and finalize it. So take the time to read it if you need to. And then if you have any questions or if you have any suggestions or changes that we need to make, then Justina will be able to do it by the line item number. And if you feel like, oh, you have nothing for this section, kind of let me know.
I'm good on this.
I did not have any,
All right, why don't we keep scrolling?
I'm just gonna, yeah, like reading it on my phone.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I think you have a hard copy of it. Or
There's
no?
Yes,
Hard copy, I printed one up for Rothman, so. if you wanna
Here's a
grab
hard
that.
copy of it, even better.
And through the chair, if I may,
Yeah.
it does look like the years for the fiscal years could stand an update. I
Oh,
think.
yes, please.
While we're in this section, maybe just to
Yes,
make it.
please. Anything that you catch like that, I tried to catch it, but you know. Okay, so if everyone has, do you have a hard copy
Yes.
yourself? And you, so why don't we do it this way, which is a little bit easier, is I'm gonna tell you, so the first, we've reviewed the paragraphs all the way down to the label background. And does anyone have any changes in that section? And if not, why don't you review the whole background section down to the label expenditure plan oversight committee? And then let us know if you have any changes. So it starts with Measure Q and T. Read those sections, review those sections, see if there's anything you think needs to change.
I just saw one spelling. Just scroll down to the second set of bullet points. Next one, next set. In that second bullet, it should, should be convene.
Or beacon.
Yeah, either one.
And it looks like they, well, that versus explains now just this next. That's all I would see.
Through the chair, is
Yeah.
it okay if I scroll? So when I was kind of previewing it, I noticed Santa Clara Valley. Can we,
Oh, yeah.
can I go through and,
Yes, please.
okay. I think that was,
Any place that you see that,
sure.
right, just Santa Clara County automatically. Anything else in this section? Linda, anything else in this section? No. Okay, so why don't we review the next section, which is labeled Expenditure Plan Oversight Committee.
I guess the first paragraph is there's space between governance and policy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So. Dre, did you make any significant change? I mean, this is all the template. previous-
Well, it just was rewritten to deal with the whole Q and T thing.
Right.
So I just had to kind of squeeze in some of the T stuff, and next year we'll squeeze out the Measure Q stuff, right? One more year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we didn't have to change that. Paste.
Right, so anything else in the section labeled Expenditure Plan Oversight Committee? Not? Now we start getting more into, well, even the next section is actually still,
So there was a, on what away. There you go, thank you.
might need to do a
Yeah,
based on that. Okay, so the next section is still actually it's still background information. And this one I did have to squeeze a lot of things together on Q and T. So I want to read about section 1, review of annual expenditures for conformance. Actually, yeah, section 1 goes down through grants. Oh, there's one thing in here, I don't know if you picked up on it, but unlike Measure Q, which had a percentage cap on administrative expenses that could be charged to Measure Q, Measure T states that the board can approve the amount each year that can be spent on administrative expenditures. And so we need to check to make sure the amount spent doesn't exceed the amount approved by the board. And we didn't get that this time, so that's why there's a recommendation that next year we get it as part of our review of the annual report. So we can confirm that the annual report, the report of administrative expenses lines up with the board approval.
That's Measure T, right?
Measure T. Did you got an orientation about the Q and T overlap?
Yeah, I've got a quick orientation and I'm
Yeah.
gonna go through it in a little more detail.
We're almost out of Measure Q.
That was my understanding.
Yeah, but I think it sounds like we'll probably continue to spend it maybe for another year. It's probably been like allocated but not spent, or is it that we still have interest, coming in that we end up having to spend?
We have what we can referred to as a carryover balance, so just unspent funds for various reasons. And I would anticipate in the upcoming fiscal year will leave us a little bit of a carryover. So that's 23, 24. So 24, 25.
There are two more reports of.
Two more reports.
Okay.
Yeah, very little in that final report, but
Okay, so that was the administrative expenses, and then any other questions or corrections in that section?
Just had a question. And that is, so with respect to administrative costs associated with Measure E, that's now subject to board approval. There's no cap on that. There's a board.
No cap.
When Measure Q goes away, what happens to the cap on
Okay.
our costs?
The EPOC expenses are still capped in Measure T. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought I checked and it both still caps the EPOC expenses at 0.1% of the gross proceeds, so the same for our expenses. So
Can't go to
you can't get two
$500,000.
sandwiches, you can only get one sandwich.
You saw right through my head.
And Madam Chair, can I offer one easy edit on line 20?
Yeah.
I think report indicates that all expenditures in Measure Q and Measure T funds fell, move the word the. Within four programs?
Oh, yes.
Or
Yes, so
or fell within the, there we go.
And then for line 124, not quite.
indicates that no amount, so the dog goes away. So what I saw, and we really should have done this when we looked at the annual report, so we'll need to think about it when we look at the annual report next time. So I went and looked in the annual report and it indicated that there were no amount of Measure Q funds used to pay administrative costs. Does that sound right? That's right, okay. Anything else in this section? On the, can we move to number 2, which is review of the annual audit?
Okay.
Anything in that section? No?
No.
Okay, so the next section is additional reviews, which is the first one is the transactions audit, which we completed. And why don't we review all the way down and through the Measure Q and T transaction audit recommendations and before the payroll time card audit. And Jeff, the recommendation about the use of funds to purchase things such as tools, we had that discussion, and this was my write-up of it. So if this was really your, your recommendation. So if you have any changes there, please make them.
That sounds great.
Anyone else have anything related to the transaction audit and our recommendations, which were very few this year? This is the fewest I've ever seen. We're starting to get good at this. Anything else in that section?
No.
So the next section, I took, so Dave did the review of a payroll time card project. And he wrote up a document that he sent to me, and Dave, I pretty much just put it in here
Yes.
as is.
Uh-huh.
So if you have
So it's
changes,
perfect.
well, I don't, I mean, it wasn't quite as is, so if there's any changes that you want to make, you let us know, but also for the other committee members. Like, and Jeff, you were here while we reviewed that, so if you feel like there's anything missing or needs to be added or changed there. Because this was new for us.
So, Justina, is there anything odd or bizarre about this portion? You've read this. Does it make sense to you?
It does.
In the first recommendation, there's an extra space.
We want a project.
If anyone gets to the end of that section and is good, let me know. I think we should just keep in mind that we kind of just said we're going to be figuring out this as we go along, which I think is great. You know, let's not create work for ourselves if we don't know what the work is, but at the meeting where we pick our transactions, we're going to need to plan on spending some extra time talking about what we're going to do.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we'll keep in mind that will be a first attempt and it won't have to be perfect, but we will have to spend some time on it, whereas before we just handed out the transactions and the old cover sheet. So let's just keep that in mind when we go to that meeting. It'll take a little longer.
So that would be like in February.
Is
Right?
it
January.
In January. I can take create a draft, a rough draft of the elements that should be in that summary sheet. We kind of follow that, you know, so we have the check marks and everything. So
That'd be great. And if you bring it, if you get it before the meeting and then it can go in the packet, look at it ahead of time, and then we can come prepared to like kind of think about it and finalize for next year. Like, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but yeah. But just keep in mind, like that meeting, you know, is one of our longest meetings because we review the annual report. We get different reports. So everybody just keep in mind for next year, the January meeting might be a longer meeting than usual. But I mean, they're not that long, right? I can't remember how long it usually takes. An hour and a half?
yeah,
About, because there's a presentation of the audit, which usually is around 15-ish minutes. The presentation of the status report, I would say probably 15 and 20.
And And we had questions and things like that. So yeah. It's a great meeting. We just need to keep it.
Mhm.
Okay, great. On the next section 3, this is you all know I have a bit of a bugaboo about the website not being transparent enough, so I wrote this up. We did discuss it at the last meeting, but if you could read through it, see if there's anything you want changed or disagree with.
Say a short summary of what your intent
Oh,
is.
yeah, and I did try to write it up because I want to make it clear why I thought it fell within our scope. I have been finding the last couple of years when I've gone on the website, which is a fantastic website, honestly, it is a fantastic website compared to a lot of public organizational websites, but the actual measure Q and T information has been hard to find. And last year they actually made a lot of really good improvements because I couldn't even find the expenditure plans after searching diligently, could not find it. A lot of great improvement. But I still feel it's not quite transparent enough. Like where the information about measure Q and T are.
I agree with you. I found that hard for me too to find.
Okay, and this is the recommendation I made, if you had any other recommendations. And the other thing that we discussed after going through the annual report, for me, it was sort of a light bulb went off that we have all this land, these lands that we own and we protect, the authority. And it's not really clear on the website either. And I feel like it's I think about it in terms of someone who's paying their measure Q and T, tax, where's that money going to? They may think, well, it's just going to those 4 preserves, but there's a much longer list. And then I realized, well, there's also the grants and the educational programs are actually kind of buried. And I feel like those should be much higher visibility on the very front page. So if someone very, wow, I can see where they're spending their money. There's, a lot going on and good job, people. So that was my thought in making these recommendations.
To be fair, I think I've seen some moves in that direction. Facebook stuff where
Yeah, that's
there's, and so it looked like a direct response to what we were intending with this. And sometimes in an organization, I've been in organizations where you're doing things and you don't realize or you don't understand the perception of the things that you're doing, you guys, the OSA, that make you guys great. The day-to-day I'm doing my job, and I'm trying to spend the money as best as I can to service the land, to service the wildlife, and to service the citizens. It's the citizens who can read, right? The wildlife, they can't, they're just gonna enjoy the fruits of that. But, the citizens really, I think you guys you deserve to get the kudos. And that's best served by presence on the website and then, your social posts and everywhere else.
And I think for this committee, what I think is important is for the transparency to taxpayers of where your money is going. So that's why I felt like it fell with this. So any changes that anyone recommends here?
I think what you're saying, when I first joined the open space, I really thought it was only about those 4 spots.
And when I talk to friends, they're all the same.
Same thing, my hiking friends, we do a lot of open space and we thought it was just, we had no idea about like Spreckles recovery of, like for me, my big thing is recovery of the land for the groundwater storage again. And these are kind of things you bang your drum a little bit. There,
Exactly. I think next year we're gonna have more discussion about ways that they can get the word out. We brought it up before about having more information at the trailheads and things like that. Let's talk about that next year.
And I'm sure you guys are looking at posts in Mid-Penn too, looking at their posts and such, and they do a pretty good job of, it's not they're tooting their horn in a right and proper way. I think it's, they get a lot of information and, but the OSA is, doing that job. So they're doing a great job. And, you guys can, raise your flag a little higher.
All right, anything more in this section? Anything needs to be changed? We're starting to really get towards the end here. The next section is an update on the status of our recommendations from last year. Very happy to report are all done.
Got any capital letters?
And bold. Oh, yeah. And then I summarized that the last section is a summary of all of our recommendations from this year, based on the review of the annual report, sample transactions audit, I got some of the spacing bad on this section and some of the bullets. I don't know if it needs to be fixed or not. But anyway, related to yeah, I just captured all of the recommendations that came out of all of our different reviews in one place. Anything there? So if there's something, I think we need a motion to approve the report as edited. Does someone want to make that motion?
What, I move that we approve the report. And
I don't need to.
I second it.
Through the chair, in previous years, we've added a clause to the motion saying or allowing staff to make formatting changes.
Yeah, okay. With the maker of the motion. We open for that. And the second.
I second it.
Okay, and that was Jeff who moved and David who seconded.
Yes. Yes.
Andrea Wheeler,
Yes.
David Burkhart,
Yes.
Jeff Mika,
yes,
Linda Marquez.
Yes.
Motion passes. Great. Then we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is determine the board meeting date and alternate date, the presenter and alternate presenter to present fiscal year 2021-2022 annual oversight report to the board. And would you like to
Absolutely, it will be my pleasure.
introduce yourself again, although I'm sure that you met, but it can't hurt to remind everyone what everyone does.
Absolutely, and as I have learned over the time, it's good form anyway. We have a recording, folks cannot see our faces, they just suddenly hear a new voice. So good evening, everybody. I'm Lee Rauscher, Assistant General Manager, and I oversee administrative and field operations. Part of the expenditure plan oversight committee's duties is to deliver the annual oversight report, which you just put your final touches on, to the authority's board of directors. And part of the chair's duties is to represent the committee in front of the board. So what we have done in previous years is confirm with the chair that he or she will be available to present to the board. And we've asked for a backup or a co-presenter at the chair's desire? Do they want someone to help with a presentation or just to be available in case they are not able to attend? We find it's easier to designate that now instead of in the last moment. So that's one item to decide. And then the second item is to choose a couple of dates that we can target to get you all on the agenda for the board meeting. And although the dates are in your packet, the next available board meetings are May 11, May 25, June 22nd, and July 27, which sounds like a long time from now, but it'll go by really quickly. So I threw out those 4 dates for consideration. And then I would pitch this back to you, Madam Chair. What is your preference for selecting a co-presenter and then a couple of dates that we can work with to schedule the presentation?
So can we start by some dates that I can't do and then kind of go from there? So I can't do the 11th.
Usually the newest member of
Yeah.
the. It's a big
So that's the only one I can't. And what were the other 3 that you mentioned?
May 25th, June 22nd, and July 27th.
Wow, they spread out there, don't they?
They do, yeah.
I can make any of those 3. And what I remember last time is that you kind of were shooting for one, but the agenda was full, and so we have to be somewhat flexible about that.
Absolutely. If you could indicate your primary choice and then a secondary, just in case, occasionally too, we wind up needing to cancel a meeting.
Yeah.
And then again, that'll just make it a faster process to schedule.
Well, I'll make my primary choice May 25th, so in case that gets pushed out. So, is there any committee member who would like to volunteer to be the backup in case I'm not able to attend?
Yeah, I'll back.
Do those dates all work for you?
May 25th, and then what was the alternate date?
June 22nd. And these are evening meetings, I should mention too, the board meetings begin at 6:30.
Either one's good.
So, we have to attend in person, right?
That is correct.
Remember that. And they open the meeting and then they adjourn to a closed session.
Yes, great question. If we have a closed session, we don't at all meetings, but we do at most meetings have a closed session, generally a half an hour. Therefore, this item probably won't be heard before 7. And as we get closer to the meeting date, once that agenda is set, which is it becomes firm the week prior to the meeting date, we can confirm there is closed session, there's not closed session. We have several items, we have one item to help you ballpark a start time. Also, if you'll let us know that the date is great, but you're not available early in the evening, we can also put it towards the end of the agenda, the beginning of the agenda to help meet your scheduling needs.
Probably request towards the beginning, but we'll see.
You don't want to stay up late with us?
Late though, I can't remember now how late they go.
It kind of depends. Starting at 6:30, 8:30, give or take. Some have been longer, some have been shorter.
You know, the housing commission goes 10,
But we won't put you through that.
midnight. I just will remember to bring a book to read during the closed session.
There you go.
Okay, thank you, and you'll let us know when we get closer.
Absolutely. I will be back in touch with you or Carol, but between the two of us, one of us will be back in touch to confirm that it is on the agenda and where it is on the agenda for both of you. Thank you very much.
Then the third item is discussion to present feedback on expenditure sampling process to staff.
Good evening, committee. Justina Teen, Fiscal Services Officer. This item is actually just an open discussion, which was kind of referenced to in the oversight report. But during the last meeting, the committee had some questions about whether to continue the payroll review. Staff felt that maybe this is opportunity to continue any of those discussions. And if we are to move forward to continuing, discussing what possible suggested changes to the transaction cover sheet.
Are you open to the suggestion that Dave made, though, that he comes with the draft and we discuss it then?
Yeah.
Because I think that, like, I know right now I wouldn't be ready to discuss it because when he gives a draft, it will clarify things of like, oh yeah, these are the issues that we need to think about. So is that okay with you?
Yes, that is completely okay with me.
Okay, let's
Yeah,
do it.
we just wanted to give an opportunity for the
No,
committee
yeah,
to
we appreciate it.
discuss.
Okay, well
So
then,
that's due in January.
we'll have a,
After Christmas, I start. No, yeah, I kind of have an idea of, and with a, just knowing that subject to change, just like all the transaction sheets, we found something better.
Yeah.
And,
Improvements each year
Yeah.
to make to.
yeah, and I would encourage the committee members, if you see any way it could be improved, you know, let's do that.
right, then that's something we don't need to take any action on this item.
Through the chair, do you want to ask for public comment?
Yes. Is there any public comment on this item?
There's none.
Thank you. Okay, we're moving to informational reports. We'll start with general manager. And can you talk about our fall meeting?
Yes, ma'am, I sure can. That's actually one of the items that I have listed. So the fourth and final meeting of the committee, we generally hold in the fall. Everyone keep your fingers crossed. Looks like meeting in person is not going to be an issue at this point, going forward. So we look forward to inviting you back out to a couple of, at least a property or a couple of project sites. Those are TBD. What I typically do is talk to staff about what projects they've been working on during the fiscal year. And then we choose something that's meaningful, that's close enough that we can get to and back within a reasonable amount of time that's easy enough to access. So I'll work with staff to arrange that. And the meeting really could be any time in the fall. We try not to wait too late because the weather gets cold and or rainy. Of course, we've had so much rain this year, maybe be the case in the fall, but you never know.
It's gonna be all you.
Right. So targeting roughly September, October, possibly into November. If folks already know they've got extended vacation time and there's time that's not good, happy to take that information outside the meeting or right now if you want to offer that. And certainly we'll plan around that. But my thought is in September, I start talking to staff. And then we contact the committee to look for a date. And then at that time, we can let you know what the sites are.
And it's usually a weekday, right?
Usually a weekday, right? Absolutely. Right, because we want to get you out there in the sunlight. And although it could be later in the day, and again, just depending on the committee's availability, we can certainly work around that. We've got some extra daylight that time of year. So it's not like we've got to be back by 5 o'clock, if that's helpful. So that's one thing. And then, when I also wanted to comment, although I know you're looking for early access to Mayan Oyakma, I do want to point out that actually all of our governance bodies, you're the only one that's been out there as a body so far. They originally planned tours for our Use and Management Committee, our Citizens Advisory Committee, might have having to be canceled due to rain, and they won't be out until next week. So you all got a great sneak peek at the property, and maybe that's when we go back to in the fall, so you can see it open. The other thing I wanted to just bring up is we are still looking for 2 more members for this committee. We have 5 seated members, but there are seats for 7. So if you have additional folks that you want to refer for membership, should we get any applications, we will let the chair, vice chair know. I believe we have a subcommittee, which is
David and Jeff.
David and Jeff. So we can let you folks know if we receive any applications, and then if you have an application that you want to recommend, we can certainly handle that outside of a meeting to get that person before the board and seated.
Thanks.
Sure, absolutely. And that is what I have, other than to say we really look forward to seeing you back.
You know, it's funny, it's the last meeting of the year, but I always think of it as the first meeting of the year. Like we come back together, it's been a long time, and then we have meet, usually it's like October, November, and then sort of January, February, March, or January, between January and April, we meet quite a bit, so then it's gonna be like 6 months with each other.
That, the tour of the Mayan Yakima was nicely timed because there was work being done. I mean, on the South Trail and parking lot. And it was the project that we looked at for time cards. So that kind of fit all together. So if a significant project is going on, that would be a preference to visit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'll have at least one or two other capital improvement projects that would be good contenders, and we'll have to look and see where we are in the fall, what their status is, and see if it's appropriate. I have to say, I was very excited when our planning manager said, oh, we can easily take them out to Mayanu Yakima, given the construction schedule, and really that was kind of the end of the window for that. So we're glad that worked out.
Right. Anything else? Are there any, let's see. The next item on the agenda, committee members, do any committee members have any reports to make? Anything that committee members would like to report to?
Yeah.
Subcommittee report? We only have one subcommittee. Job well done so far. Did we ever find out, where we got to? And that is it. There's nothing else, we'll adjourn the meeting.
You have a question.
Yeah.
Has nothing to do with Deepak, but it has to do with grants and